The apartment was silent, until Emily's scream shattered the night like glass. She clutched Noah against her chest, her arms trembling as though the weight of the world pressed on her. Mark stood in the doorway, his face twisted with rage, his voice sharp and cruel. Emily begged, "Please, stop," not in front of him, but he ignored her, slamming his fist against the doorframe before storming out. The crash of the door echoed through the walls, shaking what little safety they had left. Noah buried his face in Emily's neck, his sobs muffled against her trembling body. She whispered, "I won't let anyone hurt you," as her tears fell onto his blonde hair. Fear turned to fire inside her chest. She knew this night was the start of a war she never wanted, but one she could not run from. Silence weighed heavier than the argument itself. Emily rocked Noah gently, whispering, "It's just us now, and that's enough." Outside, the city buzzed, unaware of the storm inside their small apartment. Emily remembered the endless shifts she had worked to exhaustion, every sacrifice made so Noah would never know nights like this. Her chest ached with guilt, yet her heart refused to surrender. Mark's anger lingered in her memory, but so did her vow to protect her son. Beneath the fear burned something harder, stronger. She felt a fire take root, survival as her only choice. The fading sirens outside were not peace but warning. Emily knew their fight had only just begun. Emily sat in the lamp's glow, her mind racing as Noah's breathing steadied against her chest. She remembered nights of double shifts, scraping survival together so he would never feel abandoned. "He won't break us," she whispered, though her voice wavered. Noah shifted in his sleep, clinging tighter as though sensing her doubt. Memories of her own childhood tore through her nights of abandonment, and tears she had sworn would never touch Noah. Shame pressed heavy, but it lit resolve. This was more than custody now. It was survival and dignity. For Noah's sake, Emily would face her past even if it terrified her. The hours crawled, and the apartment sank into uneasy quiet. Emily's back ached, yet she refused to let Noah go. He murmured in his sleep, words she could not understand, her chest tightening. Memories of her childhood clawed at her nights, haunted by betrayal. "No more," she vowed, brushing hair from Noah's face. Mark's fury echoed in her mind, but she would not let history repeat. Fear gnawed at her, but anger sharpened its edge. This was no longer about a broken marriage. It was about Noah's future. She kissed his forehead, whispering silently that he would never fight alone. Dawn crept pale across the apartment walls. Emily rose carefully, carrying Noah to his bed, tucking him in gently, her hands trembling with love and fear. His innocence made her heart ache. She stood by the window, staring at the waking city, her reflection staring back, swollen-eyed. "We're stronger than this," she whispered into the cold morning air. Her palm pressed against the glass as the last echoes of sirens faded. The night had stripped her bare but sharpened her resolve. Today marked the start of her war, not just against Mark, but against every shadow of her past. She whispered to herself, "We will never be broken." Morning light seeped into the apartment, thin and cold, while Emily sat at the kitchen table with her head in her hands. Noah sat quietly on the couch, clutching his toy car, his small face still marked by tears from the night before. Mark's presence lingered like smoke, his anger seared into every corner. Emily thought about the custody battle already looming, her chest tightening with dread. "He will fight dirty," she whispered, remembering his threats. Noah glanced at her with wide eyes, silently asking if things would ever feel safe again. She forced a smile for him, though inside her strength cracked. Mark had power, money, and connections, while she had little more than love and resolve. The silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of the fridge, but Emily knew the storm outside their door was only beginning. Later that day, Emily walked Noah to school, her steps heavy though she forced cheer into her voice. "You'll be okay, sweetheart," she said, holding his hand tightly. Noah looked up at her, uncertain, his small body pressed against her side as if afraid to let go. Across the street, Mark watched from his car, his eyes cold and calculating. Emily's heart skipped when she saw him, her grip tightening on Noah's hand. The battle had spilled into every corner of their lives. Mark wasn't gone. He was circling like a predator. Emily kissed Noah's forehead at the school gate, whispering, "Be brave," before letting him go. As Noah ran toward his classroom, Emily turned back to face Mark's stare. She stood taller, though her knees shook, silently promising she would never let him win. Emily returned to work that afternoon, exhaustion etched into her features as she stood behind the register of the small grocery store. The manager hovered nearby, his eyes critical, while Mark's words replayed in her mind. Noah's laughter from earlier at school was a fragile memory against the weight of her fears. Emily's hands shook slightly as she bagged groceries, her mind distracted by the custody battle waiting. Through the window, she noticed Mark's figure across the street, watching. Rage flared in her chest, but she forced her face calm for the customer before her. Every move was being measured, judged, and used against her. Emily thought, "They see only weakness, but I will show them strength." Noah's face flashed in her mind, and her determination anchored. She would not let Mark break her spirit. That night, Emily sat with Noah at the small kitchen table, helping him with homework while her mind spun with anxiety. Noah scribbled letters clumsily, glancing at her for reassurance. She smiled, encouraging him, though her eyes kept darting to the silent phone on the counter. Mark had promised he would take Noah, and she knew a call from a lawyer would soon come. Emily squeezed Noah's shoulder, whispering, "You're doing great." Across the hall, a knock suddenly rattled the door. Emily's heart froze. She rose slowly, pulling Noah close before opening it just a crack. Mark stood there, his presence heavy, his smirk cold. Emily's chest burned with rage, but she kept her voice steady. "You don't belong here." Noah hid behind her, his little hands gripping her blouse, as the night turned darker. Emily barely slept, her nerves raw after Mark's intrusion. She rose early, packing Noah's lunch with steady hands, though her eyes burned from fatigue. Noah sat at the table swinging his legs, his face pale, his voice small as he asked, "Will he come back?" Emily knelt beside him, cupping his face gently. "He can't take you from me," she said with quiet certainty, though fear gnawed at her insides. Mark's threats echoed in her memory, his shadow never far. As Noah ate, Emily's gaze hardened. She looked out the window at the rising sun, promising herself she would fight with every breath. She had little money, little power, but she had her son, and she would never surrender him. The war was coming to her doorstep, and she was ready to stand. Emily sat in the lawyer's waiting room, her heart pounding as Noah fidgeted beside her, clutching his backpack straps. She whispered encouragement, though her voice trembled. Mark entered moments later, confident and smirking, his lawyer trailing behind him. Emily's stomach twisted, but she straightened her shoulders, unwilling to let him see her break. Noah leaned against her, eyes darting nervously toward his father, sensing the hostility in the air. Emily thought, "He will try to destroy me, but I won't give him Noah." Mark's eyes locked on her, a silent challenge passing between them. The fluorescent lights hummed above, echoing the sterile chill of the room. For Noah's sake, Emily pushed her fear aside, determined to face the storm head-on. This battle had only just begun. Inside the office, Emily sat across from Mark and his attorney, her palms damp on the table. The lawyer spoke coldly of custody, emphasizing Mark's financial stability. Emily clenched her fists, fury rising as Noah sat quietly between them, his gaze darting back and forth. She tried to speak calmly, reminding them that love and sacrifice were not measured in bank accounts. Mark leaned back smugly, cutting her off with dismissive words. Noah looked down, his small shoulders slumping under the tension. Emily steadied herself, saying firmly, "He needs stability, not intimidation." Mark's smirk faltered, but his eyes burned with defiance. Emily refused to back down, even as fear pressed against her ribs. Later that evening, Emily met her best friend Sarah at the cafe near her apartment, hoping for comfort. Noah sat beside her sipping hot chocolate, his eyes still shadowed by the meeting. Emily poured her heart out, confessing her fear of losing him. Sarah squeezed her hand, whispering encouragement, but Emily noticed Mark across the street watching them. His presence was like a shadow she could never escape. Emily's voice cracked as she said, "He's poisoning everything, even peace." Noah leaned against her, whispering softly, "Don't let him take me." Emily hugged him close, fighting tears. The cafe's warmth felt thin under Mark's gaze. The next day, Emily received a call from her employer. Her manager's voice was cold as he explained that her hours were being cut. Emily's chest sank with panic, realizing Mark's influence had reached her job. She hung up trembling, Noah sitting nearby coloring at the table, unaware of the crushing blow. Mark's shadow lingered, his threats playing out in cruel precision. Emily forced a smile when Noah asked, "Are you okay, Mom?" Her voice cracked, but she answered, "I'm fine." Inside, fear turned to anger. She whispered to herself, "He won't ruin us." Noah looked up, sensing her tension, while outside, Mark's car idled on the street, his figure visible through the blinds. That night, Emily tucked Noah into bed, her mind heavy with dread. She sat on the edge of his mattress, stroking his hair as he whispered, "Don't let him take me." Emily forced a smile, her throat burning as she promised, "Never." In the hallway, a shadow crossed the frosted glass of the door. Mark's presence was unmistakable, watching, waiting. Emily's heart raced, but she refused to show fear. She kissed Noah's forehead, whispering, "Sleep, baby." Rising slowly, she faced the door, her eyes hard. Mark wanted to break her spirit, but Emily knew this was war. She had nothing left to lose but her son, and she would never allow that. Emily sat at the kitchen table, unpaid bills spread before her like accusations. Noah sat nearby, coloring quietly, unaware of the storm raging inside her. Mark's shadow loomed across her thoughts, his threats now seeping into her livelihood. She whispered to herself, "He wants to break me." The phone buzzed with another call from her employer, but she ignored it, knowing her hours were already gone. Noah glanced up, asking softly, "Are we okay, Mom?" Emily forced a smile, stroking his hair. "We'll be okay," she said, though fear burned in her chest. A knock thundered at the door. She froze, knowing it was Mark. The walls felt smaller, the air heavier, as she braced herself for another confrontation. Emily opened the door just a crack, Mark standing on the threshold with his familiar smirk. His voice was calm but laced with venom. "You're losing control, Emily." Noah peeked out from behind her, his wide eyes full of fear. Emily blocked the doorway with her body, refusing to let him step inside. "Ah, you can't scare us," she said, though her hands shook. Mark leaned closer, whispering threats meant only for her. Noah clutched her arm tighter, whispering, "Don't let him in." Emily slammed the door shut, her heart racing. The sound echoed through the apartment, like a warning of battles yet to come. She collapsed against the wood, whispering, "He won't win." The next morning, Emily met with her lawyer in a cramped office, Noah sitting quietly with crayons in the corner. Mark was already there, leaning back confidently in his chair. The lawyer's questions were sharp, demanding proof of stability. Emily felt her stomach twist, knowing Mark had already poisoned her job situation. She answered firmly, her voice steady despite the tremor inside. "I can provide for my son," she said, glancing at Noah for strength. Mark smirked, sliding documents across the table that cast doubt on her ability. Emily's chest burned, but she refused to falter. Noah looked up, his innocent gaze giving her courage. She whispered silently to herself, "I won't give up." That evening, Emily returned home exhausted, her body heavy with defeat. Noah sat curled on the couch, asking quietly, "Did we do okay?" She forced a smile, pulling him into her arms. "We did more than okay," she said, though her eyes betrayed her. Mark's words echoed in her mind, his threats cutting into her resolve. She walked to the window, staring out at the city lights, and saw his car parked across the street. Her fists clenched as she whispered, "He won't break us." Noah clung to her side, whispering, "I'm scared." Emily kissed his hair, holding him tighter. The night outside was endless, but so was her determination. Emily tucked Noah into bed, brushing the hair from his forehead as he whispered, "Will he stop?" Her throat tightened, but she kissed his cheek. "One day," she said softly, though she knew the fight was only deepening. She sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes drifting to the window where Mark's shadow lingered outside. Fear and rage twisted inside her, but so did an unshakable vow. Emily whispered, "I will protect you," as Noah's eyes closed. Rising slowly, she walked to the door and stared into the hallway darkness, her face hardening. Mark's shadow stretched like a warning across the glass. Emily's jaw tightened as she whispered, "This ends with me." Emily walked through the park with Noah, the crisp autumn air heavy with silence. Leaves crunched underfoot as she tried to distract him from the tension shadowing their days. Mark followed at a distance, his gaze sharp as a blade. Emily whispered to Noah, "We are safe as long as we stay together." Noah nodded, clutching her hand tightly. Suddenly, a voice called her name. Emily froze, recognizing it instantly. Her estranged brother Daniel stood before her, a face she had not seen in years. Emily's breath caught in her throat as past and present collided. Mark smirked from across the park, sensing the chaos this return would bring. Daniel stepped closer, his voice soft but urgent. "I should have come sooner," he said, eyes full of regret. Emily's chest tightened, rage and longing battling inside her. Noah clung to her, his gaze darting between them. Mark leaned against a tree, arms folded, smirking as if he had orchestrated the reunion. Emily whispered through clenched teeth, "Why now?" Daniel sighed, "Because I know what he's capable of. And you can't face him alone." The words pierced her heart, stirring old wounds she had buried. Noah asked softly, "Mom, who is he?" Emily squeezed his hand, her voice trembling. "He's family." Emily sat with Daniel in the small cafe near her apartment, the smell of coffee mixing with tension. Noah sat close, his eyes never leaving her face. Daniel spoke quietly, revealing how he had watched from afar, ashamed of abandoning her years ago. Emily's anger spilled. "You left me when I needed you most," she said, her voice shaking. Daniel bowed his head, whispering, "And I'll regret it until I die." Through the window, Mark's car was parked outside, headlights glowing like eyes in the night. Emily's hands trembled, caught between the past betrayal and the present threat. Noah whispered, "I don't like him out there." Emily pulled him close, whispering, "Neither do I." That night, in the apartment, Emily and Daniel argued in hushed tones while Noah pretended to sleep on the couch. Emily's voice cracked with fury. "You don't just get to walk back in." Daniel answered, his face full of guilt. "I stayed away because I was ashamed, but I never stopped watching." Emily's tears spilled as she whispered, "I had to fight alone." Daniel nodded, "Not anymore." Mark's shadow moved past the window, reminding them both of the danger pressing closer. Emily's chest burned with conflict. Could she trust Daniel? Or was this another betrayal waiting to strike? The following morning, Emily stood at the kitchen counter, her hands gripping the edge as Daniel spoke firmly. "I have information that can destroy him." She turned, suspicion sharp in her eyes. Noah sat at the table, his small face pale, sensing the storm in the room. Emily whispered, "And what will it cost me?" Daniel's silence was answer enough. Mark's figure appeared outside again, relentless in his pursuit. Emily's heart thudded, realizing she was trapped between two pasts, one defined by betrayal, the other by looming war. She whispered to Noah, "No matter what happens, I'll protect you." But inside she knew the price was about to rise. The courtroom was heavy with silence as Emily sat beside her lawyer, her hands clenched in her lap. Noah sat between them, his small face pale, eyes darting nervously toward Ma. Mark leaned back in his chair, his expensive suit a mask of false stability, his smirk unshaken. Emily breathed deeply, whispering to herself, "For Noah." The judge entered, and the room stood, the sound of chairs scraping echoing like thunder. Emily's chest tightened as the proceedings began, every word a battle waiting to erupt. Mark's lawyer painted him as the stable parent, while Emily sat quietly, rage simmering under her calm expression. She looked at Noah and thought, "He is my strength. I will not lose him." The lawyer's voice echoed as he listed Emily's financial struggles, twisting them into weapons. Emily's chest burned with shame, but she lifted her chin, refusing to break. Noah fidgeted, whispering softly, "Mom?" Emily squeezed his hand under the table, her eyes never leaving Mark's smug face. Mark adjusted his cufflinks with calculated arrogance, as though victory was already his. Emily's lawyer rose, countering with stories of her sacrifices, her sleepless nights, her relentless devotion to Noah. The judge listened with a furrowed brow, weighing each word. Emily whispered silently, "Please see the truth." The tension thickened, the room a battlefield where love clashed with manipulation. Daniel entered the courtroom, his rugged figure drawing Emily's startled gaze. He nodded to her, carrying documents that could expose Mark's lies. Mark stiffened, his confident mask slipping for the first time. Emily's heart pounded as Daniel handed the judge evidence of Mark's manipulations and hidden debts. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, tension crackling like electricity. Noah glanced between them, his small face puzzled but hopeful. Emily thought, "He came back for this." Mark slammed his fist on the table, his anger betraying his calm facade. The judge raised a hand for silence, eyes narrowing at the evidence. Emily's breath shook, hope flickering alive in her chest. Mark rose, his voice booming with fury as he accused Emily of manipulation. His words dripped with venom, but his mask had cracked. Emily stood slowly, her voice trembling but resolute. "I've given everything to protect my son," she said, her eyes never leaving the judge's. Noah gripped her hand tightly, whispering, "Mom, don't be scared." Tears filled Emily's eyes as she drew strength from him. Daniel stood silently nearby, his presence a shield. The judge leaned forward, his gavel poised, eyes sharp with scrutiny. Emily's voice broke, but did not falter as she declared, "He is my life, and I will never let him go." The climax roared as the judge struck his gavel, demanding silence. Evidence lay spread across the bench, Mark's lies exposed for all to see. Emily held Noah close, her body trembling with relief and exhaustion. Mark's face was pale with rage, his fists clenched, his once smug expression shattered. Daniel's eyes softened as he looked at Emily, the weight of his redemption heavy in his gaze. The judge announced a temporary ruling in Emily's favor, his voice steady but grave. Emily closed her eyes, whispering, "We're safe for now." Noah pressed his face into her shoulder, whispering, "I love you, Mom." Emily answered, "I love you more." The courtroom emptied slowly, leaving Emily standing with Noah's hand in hers. Daniel hovered nearby, his face solemn but calm. Emily exhaled shakily, her body still trembling from the verdict. Noah whispered, "Are we safe now?" Emily knelt to meet his eyes, brushing his blonde hair gently. "Yes, baby," she said softly, though her heart still carried scars. Mark stood at the far end of the room, his shoulders tense, his eyes filled with silent fury. Emily straightened, holding Noah closer as she walked past him, refusing to flinch under his glare. Daniel followed quietly, his presence a reminder that family could return, even after years of absence. That evening, Emily sat at the kitchen table with Noah and Daniel. The weight of exhaustion pulled at her, but there was also relief in her chest. Noah leaned against her shoulder, whispering, "I knew you'd win." Emily kissed his forehead, her tears falling silently. Daniel placed a hand on her arm, saying softly, "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." Emily hesitated, torn between forgiveness and resentment. Mark's threats lingered in her memory, but for the first time she felt the possibility of healing. The apartment was quiet, the shadows no longer suffocating but gentle, like reminders of battles survived. Later, Emily stood on the balcony, the city lights glowing like distant stars. Noah slept peacefully inside, his small breaths steady. Daniel joined her, the night breeze tugging at his jacket. "You've always been stronger than you know," he said, his voice low. Emily swallowed, whispering, "I'm tired of fighting." Daniel looked at her, his eyes full of regret, and said, "Now you can start living." Emily turned toward the glass door, watching Noah's silhouette in bed. A fragile smile touched her lips. For the first time in years, she let herself believe in tomorrow. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the apartment. Emily watched Noah eat breakfast at the table, his laughter filling the room like music she thought she had lost forever. Daniel leaned against the counter, watching with quiet pride. Emily smiled, whispering, "We're stronger now." She reached across the table, holding Noah's hand, feeling his warmth. The scars of the past remained, but they no longer controlled her. Mark's shadow might linger, but it no longer defined her. Emily realized strength wasn't just in fighting, but in rebuilding. Noah beamed up at her, his smile brighter than the sun rising outside. That night, Emily stood quietly by Noah's bedroom door, her hand resting gently on the frame. The apartment was peaceful. The hum of the city softened into the distance. Noah slept soundly, his small frame safe beneath the blanket. Emily whispered to herself, "We're stronger now, and we'll never stop fighting." A real smile spread across her face, one free of masks and fear. Daniel watched from the hallway, giving her a nod before turning away. Outside, Mark's shadow was gone at last, swallowed by the night. Emily stepped into the room, sitting beside Noah, her hand over his heart. The war was over, but the journey of healing had just begun.